Yes, sir.
I think that to add a little bit to this for society, if you look at the total energy consumption, over 60% of the energy consumption is transportation. And as we move into electrics, as shown by Better Place, somewhere within the next 15 years, we're going to have at least 1 million EVs out there. And it's going to continue to increase till we get up to somewhere around 50% or more of our vehicles are going to be EVs. That's going to add perhaps to the projected amount of electric grid power we're going to need in some way or another.
Yeah.
Along with that, there is another thing here in California that's usually not recognized, and that is 20% of our electrical consumption is used for moving water. And all these things have to be incorporated into any future energy outlook. And there's one last one, where if we look again at transportation, just about the most efficient way of moving goods, moving freight, is steel wheels on steel rails. If we look at the railroads in this country, 40% of their freight is moving coal, which we're trying to eliminate to clean up the environment. 20% of their profits are from moving coal. So we have to be careful of unintended consequences. I think there's a huge challenge. I think there's a huge amount of opportunities. But if we cripple the railroad system, are we going to adjust? Are we going to hurt ourselves?
Yeah.
If we incorporate all these things,
what we don't have today, we don't have choice. Today we have monopolies. They tell us what we will do. They choose their fuel sources. They get their approval from the regulators, and the end-use customer chooses his energy choice by where he lives. That's it. That's your only choice. If you want green power, you go to Pacific Northwest. If you want cheap power, you go to Illinois.
Yeah, just a question. Ron B. from Destin House. Clarification and then a question. You're not arguing, are you, that you would separate these microgrids from the overall grid?
No, as a matter of fact, I think it's incumbent on the utility to participate.
Exactly, because you discussed the distribution grids that exist in Texas, for example. How would deregulation affect all of this, and wouldn't that also allow others to come into the market besides the microgrids in this area?
Absolutely.
That may not be price competitive.
Yeah, unfortunately, the term is tainted from the 90s, but absolutely correct.
But what is the state of play in terms of deregulation of gas and electric in California? Because I'm hearing rumblings that may be deregulating again.
Rumblings, yes. And I look for the future where it's actually approved. Right, guys.
I'm a technology guy, so I'm excited about what you said. But the thing that occurs to me is that you have to treat the utilities and their centralized capability as a backstop, as a safety valve, right?
They're the battery, absolutely.
But how do they plan their capacity in any way different from what they're doing now with these microgrids?
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but definitely the utilities have to witness an emergence of self-generation and plan for it. How do you plan capacity? Right. The model has to change.
Pay for the capacity and the infrastructure, but now only 10% of the time, 90% of the people are going to use it.
Absolutely.
So how do you amortize it?
Yeah. Well, let's see. If there were an open market and the utility were allowed to charge a connection fee to every home that was connected, every business that was connected, and there was a monthly connection fee, without regard to you using any energy on that, then the utility could be held whole if that fee was charged in an equitable way. And let's just take that one step further. The utility does not produce any power, but it's an open market. Anybody can produce power, anybody can place power onto the grid, and as long as it fits the constraints of the distribution company, which is, it has to be 60 hertz and it has to be controlled by volt-var controls and all these other characteristics. If all of those things came to play, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but if all those things came to play, the utility could be the arbiter of all that energy flow.
I'm actually talking about the operational side. I don't understand the arbiter. So what I'm saying is, let's say that in San Diego we had about 500 microgrids.
Sure.
In Greater San Diego. let's say there is, on a Sunday morning, there is some FUBAR, and everything goes down, right? What happens?
Same
How
thing.
do we recover from a FUBAR?
I would argue in that example that there's a lot more potential sources of energy surrounding you than there are today.
Yeah, so I've got
Yes, sir.
just a couple of comments and observations. First of all, I'm a big believer in combined heat and power, which is kind of the heart of, I think, any of the microgrids you're going to see right now. You see San Diego is doing what they're doing because they've got 26 megawatts of generation for producing, also the thermal that they need, and that's the reason it's on site. If it was a simple cycle turbine, it wouldn't be running. And so you'd have to look for any smokestack, which was always my when I was with GE or with fuel cell. That's what I'd be looking for, is a smokestack, because that's where I could go get value. So to me, that's the heartbeat of a microgrid. And really, if you go back to the start of the utility business, it was always at the industrial sites because they needed the heat.
Yeah.
So that, and then what you're describing, right, where everybody starts being self-generating, and do they put, and what happens to the utility, is exactly is what is happening in Hawaii right now. You look at the island of Hawaii and Helco, they're very concerned that some of their large customers could now start separating for themselves.
Yeah.
And they would immediately dump their cost on a lot of very small ratepayers. And
Where else is it going to go?
trying to figure out how to, and that would just drive the cost through the roof. Now, one last thing is that they are taking care of it now through not Hawaii, but how we deal with it in California is through standby charges and demand charges. And that's how you are assessed for anybody who generates. And there was a waiver up to 1 megawatt, but you would have a $17 per kilowatt standby charge. And then the demand charge.
There's another opportunity for the utilities and all this. And I mean, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, but one of the other opportunities here is the utility can actually own the assets on the customer property, right? So the CHP, if hotel wants to have their own self-generation, the utility comes in, we'll build it for you, and not only will we build enough for you, but we'll have grid reliability for the local community as well. So I'm not saying separate from the utility, but I'm saying that I think we need to think as a society of a different way of managing our energy consumption and really have a true indication of what the cost of energy is. And without a competitive market, we'll never know. I'm going to just stop there. Thanks for your time.